The $2.8 trillion car market isn't just cooling off, it's imploding right in front of us. Across America, more than 4.2 million vehicles are sitting on dealer lots, collecting dust for months on end. Dealers are bleeding thousands of dollars a day just to keep cars parked, and some are already preparing bankruptcy papers. But it's not just dealerships that are drowning. Millions of car owners are waking up to the terrifying reality that their vehicles have lost so much value. They now owe far more than their cars will ever be worth again. The auto loans people thought were safe have turned into financial traps, repossessions are exploding, and even brand new luxury cars are being abandoned. Behind the numbers lies something far more sinister. A perfect storm of collapsing values, frozen credit, and an entire generation walking away from car ownership. And what happens next could permanently reshape transportation in America. The question isn't if the car market will recover, it's whether you'll survive what's about to hit. Right now, dealer lots across America look less like car showrooms and more like graveyards of unsold metal. Over 4.2 million vehicles are sitting idle, untouched for months. A Honda Civic that once sold within 24 hours now sits abandoned for half a year. Trucks, SUVs, even economy cars that used to fly off lots are turning into expensive paperweights. The average car sits for 127 days before anyone makes a serious offer, and in some cases, it's closer to 300. Every one of those vehicles costs dealers about $47 per day in interest. Multiply that by millions of cars, and you're staring at over $200 million being drained from dealer accounts every single day. This isn't just a slowdown, it's financial quicksand pulling the industry under. To understand how devastating this is, listen to Sarah, a veteran car dealer in Ohio. After 20 years in the business, she thought she'd seen every market swing possible, until now. She told me, "I've got $3.2 million in inventory nobody wants. My floor plan interest alone is $4,800 per day. I'm not selling cars anymore. I'm managing a financial disaster that gets worse every morning I unlock the doors." Sarah's nightmare is being repeated at thousands of dealerships nationwide. But here's the chilling part. Dealers going broke is only the beginning. Because the true damage of this unsold car crisis is about to spill over onto millions of unsuspecting car owners. The collapse of car values is happening so fast that owners can't keep up. In the last 18 months, used car prices have dropped 23%, and wholesale auction prices, the real prices dealers pay, have crashed 35%. That means the car you bought 2 years ago may now be worth $15,000 less than what you still owe on it. Millions of Americans are waking up trapped in what insiders call negative equity prison. Imagine making payments on a truck that's worth $20,000 less than the balance on your loan. It's a financial trapdoor, and once you fall through, there's almost no way out. Take Jennifer from Arizona. She bought her 2021 Tahoe, thinking it would hold its value. Today, she still owes $52,000 on the loan, but when she tried to trade it in, the dealer only offered her $34,000. That's an $18,000 hole she can't escape unless she keeps paying on a vehicle that's sinking in value every month. And she's not alone. Millions of car owners are facing the same ugly math. The value crash is turning ordinary drivers into financial hostages, chained to vehicles they can't afford to sell and can't afford to keep. But as brutal as this looks for car owners, the truth is, the collapse is spreading into something even more devastating for the dealers themselves. Desperation has taken over dealer lots, and it's playing out in ways that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. We're seeing trucks discounted by $15,000, luxury SUVs slashed by $25,000, and 0% financing stretched out for 84 months. Some dealers are practically begging customers to take cars off their hands, losing money on every sale. But here's the shocking part: people still aren't buying. The psychology of the market has flipped. Once consumers sense panic, they hold off, waiting for prices to fall even further. It's a vicious cycle where dealers cut prices deeper, buyers hesitate longer, and inventory piles higher. The result? Bankruptcies are quietly sweeping across the industry. A bankruptcy attorney told me he already has 23 active cases on his desk from major franchises, dealers that survived the 2008 crisis but can't survive this one. Repossession lots are filling with brand new vehicles that banks are desperate to liquidate at any price, which only pushes market values down even further. For some dealers, every passing day feels like drowning in quicksand, with no rescue in sight. And if you think the collapse stops at dealerships, you're only seeing the surface. Because hidden just beneath this inventory nightmare is a credit disaster that's about to rock the entire financial system. If the unsold inventory wasn't enough, the real shock is happening in the lending market. Just 2 years ago, 85% of customers could walk into a dealership and get approved for a loan. Today, that number has collapsed to barely 62%, and for the ones who do get approved, the rates are brutal. Prime borrowers who once enjoyed 2.9% are now being quoted 10–12%. Subprime customers are staring at rates as high as 25%. Even those willing to pay are being turned away, because lenders fear the car will be worth less than the loan before the first payment is made. Repos are already up 47% in just 1 year, and that's before the worst has even hit. Subprime lending, the lifeline that kept millions of working Americans on the road, is evaporating. Executives from inside the industry are admitting the truth: we're not making new loans. Period. Without financing, dealerships lose their most profitable revenue stream, and buyers are locked out of the market entirely. The ripple effect is massive: repossessions flooding auctions, credit scores plummeting, and lenders abandoning the very customers who need cars the most. But this financial freeze doesn't just stop people from buying, it's pushing the entire manufacturing side of the industry to the edge of collapse. As financing dries up and cars sit unsold, the pressure is crushing manufacturers. GM has already announced the closure of 6 plants, Ford is cutting shifts at multiple factories, and Stellantis is offering buyouts to tens of thousands of workers. Entire production lines are slowing to a crawl, and in some cases shutting down completely. Cars that do roll off the line are being dumped in overflow lots, fields packed with thousands of brand new vehicles that may never find a buyer. Some have been sitting so long they need reconditioning before they can even be sold. The system that once moved cars from factory to driveway in weeks is now jammed like a broken pipeline. The gamble on electric vehicles has only made the problem worse. Automakers poured billions into EV production, betting big on a demand surge that never came. Ford lost billions last year on unsold Lightnings. GM's Ultium platform is producing vehicles that gather dust, and even Tesla is slashing prices in a desperate attempt to move inventory. Suppliers that depend on steady orders are collapsing as demand disappears, creating shortages that ripple back up the chain. A single missing part can now shut down an entire plant. For the first time in decades, America's most iconic car companies are quietly preparing for a future where bankruptcy isn't just possible, it's on the table. But what terrifies them even more is the cultural shift that's making this crisis permanent. The financial strain has now forced America's biggest automakers into survival mode. GM has already announced the closure of 6 factories, Ford is cutting shifts across multiple plants, and Stellantis is offering tens of thousands of workers early buyouts. Production lines that once ran around the clock are slowing to a crawl, and in some cases going dark entirely. Cars that do get built aren't heading straight to customers anymore. They're being dumped into sprawling overflow lots, fields filled with thousands of brand new vehicles with no buyers in sight. Some have been sitting so long that they're literally rotting under the weather, needing reconditioning before they can even be sold. This is a nightmare scenario for manufacturers who have spent decades fine-tuning just-in-time production systems, designed to keep the pipeline lean. Instead, the system is now choking on excess. A GM plant manager admitted, "We built 2,400 trucks last month. Dealers ordered 800. That imbalance is crushing." Manufacturers are paying millions just to store and insure vehicles that may never leave those lots. The pressure is pushing the industry towards something unthinkable, not just temporary cutbacks, but permanent capacity reductions. And what's fueling this fire even more is the risky bet automakers made on electric vehicles, bets that are now backfiring in spectacular fashion. The industry thought electric vehicles would be their salvation. Billions were poured into new factories, battery plants, and flashy EV models that were supposed to dominate the future. But instead of saving the industry, the EV bet is accelerating its collapse. Ford lost nearly $5 billion on EVs last year alone, while unsold Lightnings are piling up in storage lots. GM's Ultium platform, once hailed as revolutionary, is turning into a financial anchor, with cars sitting for months unsold. Even Tesla, the company that built its empire on EV hype, is slashing prices and losing margins just to keep inventory moving. The problem isn't just weak demand, it's overcapacity. Automakers built factories to pump out hundreds of thousands of EVs a year, but buyers aren't lining up. The infrastructure isn't ready, charging stations are scarce, and the average consumer still sees EVs as expensive luxuries rather than practical choices. Billions that could have kept traditional models profitable were diverted into a gamble that's now bleeding cash every quarter. Instead of being the lifeboat for the auto industry, EVs are becoming the weight that drags it further underwater. And while automakers burn through reserves, their suppliers are collapsing under the pressure too. As automakers slash production, the shockwaves are ripping through the supply chain. Companies that make everything from seat cushions to electronic modules are shutting down as orders vanish overnight. One Tier 1 supplier admitted they had to lay off 40% of their workforce after a major automaker slashed orders by 60% with just 2 weeks' notice. These aren't minor disruptions. These are lifelines being cut for thousands of workers who built their careers feeding the industry. The failure of even one supplier can grind entire production lines to a halt, because without a single part, an entire car can't be built. The system that once made the industry efficient is now exposing its weakness. The just-in-time model was designed to save money, but today it's making the entire supply chain fragile and brittle. When suppliers collapse, it triggers a chain reaction. Manufacturers can't build cars, dealers don't get inventory, and workers lose their jobs. Entire communities in the Midwest that depend on auto plants are bracing for devastation. What we're watching isn't just a slowdown. It's a cascade failure where one broken link threatens to pull down the entire chain. And while the industry scrambles to survive, another force is quietly rewriting the rules of the game, a generational shift that may prove fatal to car culture itself. Even if the industry somehow survived the financial chaos, it faces a cultural shift that may be impossible to reverse. Younger Americans no longer see car ownership as a milestone of freedom. It's a burden. Instead of shelling out $600 to $800 a month for a vehicle that loses value every day, they're putting that money toward travel, education, or saving for a home. Remote work has erased daily commutes, and cities are redesigning themselves to discourage car use altogether. For millions under 30, a car isn't a dream, it's a liability. This is the part that terrifies automakers the most. An entire generation is rejecting the very foundation the $2.8 trillion industry was built on. Rideshare services, car subscriptions, and even public transit are replacing ownership as the default. Automakers spent decades chasing high-margin luxury trucks and SUVs, while ignoring the affordable cars young buyers actually wanted. Now foreign competitors are stepping in with cheaper, more practical models while American brands sit on overpriced inventory no one's asking for. For the first time, the threat to the car industry isn't just economic, it's cultural. And when culture shifts, there's no going back. All the signs point to one undeniable truth. The car market isn't experiencing a dip, it's undergoing a complete reset. Unsold vehicles choking dealer lots, values collapsing faster than loans can be repaid, repossessions flooding auctions, bankruptcies spreading from dealers to suppliers, and factories grinding to a halt. Every link in the automotive chain is breaking at once. What's left standing won't look anything like the industry we've known for the last century. Within the next 18 months, analysts predict that up to 40% of dealerships could vanish permanently. Entire communities built around auto plants are facing an uncertain future, while a younger generation is redefining what transportation even means. The collapse of the $2.8 trillion car market isn't just about cars, it's about the end of an era. From its wreckage will rise something entirely different. And the only question that matters is when the reset is complete, will you be ready for the new rules of the road? The collapse of the $2.8 trillion car market isn't a story about numbers. It's about the end of a way of life. Dealers drowning in unsold inventory, car owners trapped in loans they can't escape, lenders pulling the plug, and factories closing their doors are all symptoms of a much bigger reset. The automotive industry was built on the promise that cars would always be at the center of the American dream. But today that dream is cracking under the weight of debt, desperation, and changing culture. What comes next won't just change how we buy cars. It will redefine how we move, how we live, and how we think about transportation itself. The old system is collapsing, and a new one is already being born. The question isn't whether the car market will recover. It's whether you'll be ready for what replaces it. Because this isn't just a correction, it's the beginning of the great automotive reset.